Welcome, everyone. This program, Manifest Your Desires, was inspired by the program we did in 2000, I think in the end of 2017, which was called Manifestation Nation. And it was a bonus video in this month's web page for our events. If you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend you to watch it. And an interesting thing there was that while doing that meditation, manifesting the upcoming year with Judith, I actually was surprised how many things I felt, upcoming, I felt coming into my life. And it's really tricky because you think, where does it come from? Is it me creating all this, or was it somehow predestined for me, or how does this whole thing work? And I invited everyone to explore this topic with me, because I think it's very exciting, because we all living beings on earth, I think we are driven by desire. It's such an essential part of our life, and really it's the main driver. If you don't want anything anymore, you may as well die, or you are like dead, because you don't have any more desires, you don't have any more motivation to drive you. Another exciting thing that I like is psyche, just this precognition, or developing psyche abilities, because it's like a mystery for me. How do these things work? And again, looking backwards, I can say, for example, in that program, that the events of the last year that I could kind of foresee, they were very well pictured, so to say, or like we discussed this during our Language of the Subconscious program, where we were talking about how to interpret symbols from your dreams, and in general how to interpret meditations, because that's your subconscious producing all these unusual stories, all these dreams. And I found that most emotionally charged things, they leave a trace, or they leave deeper track, if you can say so, of course on an invisible level, but they are the ones that you can easier pick up, say, if you're trying to look into the future and foresee things. So I put certain questions out there for today, and I welcome everyone to contribute to what we have to say about these things. And let's basically start with the first one. Is it all predestined, or it's important to dream for us? So my personal opinion is that wishing, hoping, dreaming is absolutely essential. It's absolutely healthy and essential thing. And in whatever form and however you do it, it's very, very important to have desires. But again, here, there will be a bunch of, questions coming up. Of course, you say, I want something, but you have to be very attentive. What part of you wants something? Because, we very often, we kind of have some idea in our mind, and then we find that we can't move beyond this idea, or kind of nothing happens. We have desires, but they do not ever come to manifestation. And there is, I think, a very, very important key ingredient there that I want to mention now, is when you ask yourself about your desire, you have always to make sure if it's real, if it's something that you really want, and how you can check it, if it inspires you, if you feel kind of the energy inflow, if you feel, in Russian we have a special term for that, we call it creative thinking, or imaginative thinking, or you have an image of your desire. An image here implies not just a picture, when your image is supported by feeling, is supported by all your senses, so you can actually kind of foresee, or you feel the realization of this desire in now, though it's not yet there, you feel it in now. And that way you can say that it's really true desire for you, and it has more chances to become true, because it's you can always remember in our awakened mind pattern we have free flow of energy, right? And we need to make sure that our mind, heart and body, they're all connected, right? So you can say we need beta. I'll just say it's like our mind. I'll simplify it. And we should have alpha, because these are our senses, these are our feelings. And then we need to have our heart in it, and this is theta. So I think all of these things are important to be in play. So you have to have consistency and flow in between heart, body, and mind, because otherwise it will be just an idea and it won't take you anywhere. And you have to understand again, it's an idea. An idea usually awakens your senses in a way, kind of excites your senses, and this excitation will be felt in your body, who will eventually probably do something to make your dream come true. So whenever you are dreaming or thinking of your desires, next time or just now even, listen to your body and see the response. If there is no response, it means something is lacking, something is not there. Maybe it's not quite what you want. Maybe it's not the right timing. Maybe you formulated it wrong. But if you don't feel this excitation, I doubt that it will take you far on your manifestation, of this desire. So,
And there, may I interject, is the delta that Steve just pointed out, to be aware of the risks of pursuing your goal, but also delta is associated with the body. So
yeah,
Oksana, you've covered a lot, touched upon a lot of different things there.
it's
I wonder if we can go back to your original question and then just open it up, and maybe people can plug into whatever you said or whatever is in their minds.
okay. Judith, may I make, okay, later I'll make a comment about delta as well. So I'm very happy to listen to what our dear guests have to say.
I just want to say I really appreciate the careful linguistic analysis you're doing here. And I guess English is not your native language, but this is great because so many people don't really like to pick these things apart. And yet it's important to make the distinction between desires, goals, dreams, and so forth, manifestation. People tend to get all these things confused in their mind. And I'm in a situation now where I have a desire to do public speaking, but I can't decide for sure, should I make it a goal? I don't know for sure if it's a dream. And you were talking about listening to your body, and I've been going through some changes with that because, due to my upbringing and problems I had when I was young, I kind of lost touch with a lot of feelings in my body. So I relied on biofeedback for a lot of years. I started off with just electrodermal, listening to my relaxation response, and then I got into biofeedback, practicing with that, and also with the Robert was saying, the heart connection. I can't think of the term right now. It's synchronization, But I just all of a sudden quit. Like about 6 months ago, I just got tired of doing it. Now I'm trying to do it more intuitively or naturally, but that is important, and you have to listen to your body. But ultimately, it's a cerebral decision. You got to move up from these steps of the ladder, from desire to dream to manifestation. You got to, as you say, you got to have the beta in there too. It's got to be a conscious thing too.
Well, where does desire come from for you, Steve?
A lot of times from seeing somebody else do something. Like I remember I was watching Johnny Carson years ago, and I thinking I could do that. And so many years later, I tried doing stand-up comedy. I had a little bit of success with it. So a lot of times it's just from watching or reading, what other people have done.
How about for other people? Where does desire come from? Is it a kind of energetic impulse, or is it something you feel in your heart, or both? Or is it just an analytical thing. Oh, I should get to point C, so I desire to get to point B first so I can get to C? Or is it all of those?
For me, this is Robert, Bob. It depends on the nature of the desire. Like, I wanted my hypnotherapy classes to go and bring in sufficient funds so I would be able to pay for the mind mirror, which is on my credit card right now. And I definitely need to study with you personally, and that's another couple grand with airfare and everything. So that was one born of analysis. That's a laugh there. And, you know, of what do I do to bring people in? And I was only partially successful in that, but my classes are going now, so I'll be able to achieve those others. When it comes to my drive for awakening, that's been with me my whole life since I was a child. But trying to understand the nature of the universe, my place here, and what I am to do and become. So that comes from a different level. I feel like it's a soul impulse.
Yeah, so are we starting to say that it could be from all levels, as Sai just pointed out in a chat, simultaneously? I wonder if the most workable desires that could go into drives, that could go into manifestation, would be a combination of all of those different levels. Just as Oksana pointed out, the best driven anything from meditation to the way we operate in external life is a combination of all those different levels of our being: intuition, instinct, intellect, beta, alpha, theta, delta, even gamma. Could it be all of those? Would those be then the best way to repel a desire?
Just I'll say,
Well,
yeah, sorry.
I don't think it has to be all of them. I mean, and furthermore, those of us who are not so together mentally and spiritually and everything, we kind of work on it, gradually putting the pieces together. So it might come in as strong alpha one day, and then in your dreams it might come in as strong theta. Then on another day you get an inspiration that's intellectual, and you know, those are those who are struggling with this kind of thing. You know, we just put it together step by step as best we can.
Sense.
We have needs and we have desires, and there is, you know, like hierarchy of needs and desires, if you like, and there are lower levels. The body will want to do something, but doesn't necessarily mean that your mind wants now to go and do this, but you know, that's the thing we have to obey. They kind of lower levels of the desires in the hierarchy, but I think spiritual desires, they probably will be the strongest, that will activate all the levels below, you know, similar to gamma reorganizing all the brain waves of the lower frequency and aligning them. That's, I think, what spiritual desires will do for you. They're kind of the highest, and I think it's also the representation or indication of how spiritual truly the person is, if you can see that all these lower levels, they're able to be aligned, you know, and kind of have this integrity across all levels. So that was a great question.
I tend to see things through a little bit different veil, since I have been doing and teaching clinical hypnotherapy for some 25, 30 years. So in the work that I do, it's like the body is a manifestation of the subconscious mind, and that it's stimulated by emotion, by enthusiasm, by belief, expectation. And so anything we can do to get the emotional subconscious mind excited drives it in. So I tend to think more in those terms rather than I do equating it with different brainwave frequencies. And when the desire is strong, when we've created enough excitement, it can be done just simply by suggestions on a hypnotic tape or by a hypnotherapist, then as those suggestions go into the mind, and the better connected we are in with the field, the more rapidly it will take place. That's sort of the way I think of it, that you know, we're all connected into the field to varying degrees in terms of conscious connection. And the more aligned we up with the different frequencies and our intent, then the more quickly we can bring things into materialization.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Robert. We did do a webinar last month on winning mindset with David Fairweather. And these are really concepts that are basic to awakened mind theory, and it's that if you have a conflict between your beta and your alpha theta, that is your thinking mind and your feeling heart's nature, then that accounts for a lot of what hampers us in life. So if we decide that we want to manifest something, then I think we have to check with that on all levels of our being and make sure that is really what we want. And once then we decide upon a desire or a goal, work from there. I strongly suspect and would say that every single spiritual teacher, Dawson Church, Joe Dispenza, you name them, would agree with that. That if there's a basic inner conflict, all you're going to manifest is inner conflict.
For instance, if somebody's trying to manifest money, prosperity, but they have from their life experiences, I'm undeserving and unworthy, then those are like, in the Bible, planting your seeds upon fertile ground. If you're planting them on top of those granite belief structures of unworthiness and undeservingness, nothing's going to take place. So first, the would be to find, like you were saying, and clearing those limiting beliefs that are holding us back regarding whatever topic, whether it's love, relationships, finances, body, health.
Yeah.
All of them have different belief structures that are in place that are creating either happiness and joy in what we want or dysfunction.
And I would love to hear from my dear friend Sylvia Chappell, who's joined us on this program. I don't see you, Sylvia, but I see that your microphone is unmuted, so I hope you're able to talk with us. By way of introduction, Sylvia is an intuitive reader and works a lot with people who have sub-programs running that are causing difficulties in their lives. You there, Sylvia?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, I'm happy to be able to join this. And yes, a lot of my work is about the alignment that so many of you are speaking about. And what I wanted to comment on is that to me, it's very important if I'm working with a desire or something I want to manifest to know if that is an authentic desire. And if it is, and I think Oksana was touching on this, that it's in line with my highest and best good or my soul's divine plan. And also, a lot of the work that I do is through Akashic Records readings, and that allows access to everything, past lives, present issues. And in terms of authentic, there are, as I think Bob it was who said that, there are so many belief structures that we buy into or take upon us or interfere with our soul's divine plan. And it's important to know that to be able to discern which ones are authentic. In other words, coming from me and not some program that I've been running or something that's, the record keepers often talk about the many programs that are broadcast through popular entertainment. And I think as most of you are aware, it's important to know if we have receptors to them, to programs that are limiting or belief systems such as I am not worthy, or I am disconnected from, or I am not connected to God, or my divine, the part of me that is divine, or my higher self, or however you want to look at it. I can also introduce a concept that you might find interesting that has come up in many Akashic Records readings, particularly recently, and that is the concept of sovereignty and restoring one's divine right as a free will being and a spark of the divine, to have that direct connection with the highest source that we can imagine. And this is something that, as Judy, I'm sure you know, Edgar Cayce said was our birthright as human beings. We're all able to connect with the divine, but there's much programming through, I don't know, a few thousand years maybe. So in a lot of readings, I actually go through a little mini coronation with clients directed by the record keepers and restore the crown of sovereignty. And it's referred to as this is your emblem that you're connected to the highest source, which is, of course, as we all know, the most powerful way to manifest. And the record keepers will often even comment on what's in the crown of sovereignty, like what it's made of, and it's usually etheric versions of precious metals or stones, and these vibrations are important for the person. And of course, it gets restored to the crown chakra, and the record keepers will often have me add that this is the emblem that you are your own spiritual authority, and you are the sovereign of your kingdom, which is your consciousness. So,
which really comes to self-belief, doesn't it? And self-trust. I mean, it's certainly connection, but whether you help them make the connection or they already have the connection, if you don't believe in and trust yourself, to be able to, as a spark of that quantum C, we'll take it out of the more charged language and put it in the more secular language.
Yes, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, if you don't believe that you have that power, then there is you're bootstrapped right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Or if you're attempting to manifest without that power, and also without knowing what your desire, what the origin is. Mm-hmm. If it's authentic to who you are as an individual.
So how would people make that determination, Sylvia, or anybody else who wants to comment on that? How do you know that your desire is part of the reason that you came here, basically, and what it is that you have perhaps always wanted and needed to do that will further your conscious evolution? How do we know that? Oksana! You have an idea. Okay, please.
Yes, I have an idea. I just had an idea, borrowed from physiology. If you remember, again, we had the program Practice of Silence by the System of Health Management, which is based on the science, which is based on studies of physiology by Russian scientists. And basically from there, you can borrow the idea that whenever physiology, let's see it in a wider, broader terms as basically how life operates, right? Not just the body, but it's like you can extrapolate these principles into life in general, right? How life organizes itself, how it works. And the key there is that whenever you are doing something in the right direction for yourself, it usually comes with ease, right? And it's rewarded in the end. So, take any physiological example. If you need to go to the bathroom, it will take you least time usually. You don't want to torture yourself, right? You have to obey, go and do it. And then when you do it, you feel really good. And same with hunger, just with basic needs, you can see how you're rewarded, and body knows if you had the right food for yourself, you're satisfied, not just hunger, but kind of nutritional requirements of the body. You will have good feelings in the end. It will be rewarded. You'll feel, oh, I feel energized. I don't feel heavy in my stomach. Oh, I have energy to move on and do things. And even your mood can change, after a good meal. So it has many factors underneath, but you always get rewarded for that. And you want to continue. You want to you have positive learning, positive experience. So I think it's It's the same way. It comes with ease to you. So it's kind of least resistance path, if you like. So you kind of get into like the current. I also very often make an example of like surfing, like surfers to get out into the sea behind the waves, they'll need to get into the current, because instead of paddling too much, the ocean current will just take you there. So you need to see and be able to tune in and operate with these currents. And then basically authenticity, I'm very thankful to Sylvia, the way she presented, it's absolutely wonderful. How this authenticity, in other terms, in other words, again, in that same program about practice of silence and these physiological principles of life, I was talking about truth. You know, it's the same thing. What is truth? Your inner truth, and you realize your truth, and that's what makes you happy. Really, I can tell you that the Dmitry Shemenkov, our guest, the founder of that system, he basically, when he was asked a question by his future wife, what makes you happy? I have everything, she said. I have money, I have apartment, I have boyfriend, but I'm not happy. And he said, being happy to me is just be myself. So when you're perfectly fitting into who you are, realizing who you are, taking this ride, again, as Sylvia said, and realize that you feel happy, you're rewarded. That's all I had to say.
The only thing I would say about that, Oksana, is that those are great and wonderful principles for people who are well developed enough to know who they are. But a lot of people not only don't know who they are, what they want is no good for them, much less is in alignment with their soul's highest purpose. So I think we are going to have to look a little wider and a little deeper to find something that will work for everyone. I mean, I'm not saying that it's possible that the people on this program are not self-actualized and completely together, but there could be people who are watching this program at a later date, and you tell them, just do what makes you feel good, what makes your body feel good, and you go out with Lizzie Borden and chop somebody up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's crazy and that's extreme, but really the principle holds. I mean, I remember being at that stage and state, thank God, decades ago in my own life. The only thing that I can contribute really as to how do you find your authentic self, your soul's purpose, is meditation. And then when it comes through, you feel it. There's an intuitive sensing, an intuitive knowing, a thrum of vibration, and you see your way forward. Maybe not visually, but ideas start to flow in. And at that moment, you realize that you're in like a tractor beam of something that's more expanded than the ordinary you. And in that expansion, you're in contact with your soul. And so your soul's purpose is easily and efficiently made known to you. And then you get on that track. The first thing you start to do, oh, well, that certainly was easy. And then the second thing, gee, what a coincidence. This was two easy things on the same track. And about the 10th time, you realize that you're on a magical, mystical tour of manifestation. And life actually can do some very interesting things where you think of something and it shows up. And it shows up and gives you an idea for thinking of something else, and something else shows up, and then things get really interesting. Well, there's no question about those kinds of levels of manifestation. Although I would make a case, and we should address this, that for there to be these levels of manifestation, where manifestation is instantaneous, there has to be some inner purification, some inner clarification of lower desires, so that you can be operating in your upper energy systems and in contact with your soul or your higher self, or that part of you that is in contact with that quantum sea of light, which is where the flow of energy and information harmonize with your human self, so that you can know and understand what it is that's best for you to do. I was not able to begin to instantaneously manifest anything until I got really a lot of my lower urges and thoughts, patterns, and conditioning out of the way. But maybe it's different for other people. Maybe I just had that belief, and so, I mean, that is a common belief, right? You do see that everywhere from Christianity and every major spiritual tradition. That is the teaching. So it could be that that was my own conception. Maybe somebody, and in fact, maybe bad people do manifest instantaneously. I'd be curious to hear a conversation on that. Do you need to be a clear container, able to resonate, able to perceive and then resonate with the energies in the field in order to manifest your highest good? Or can just anybody do it to any end?
There's a lot of things contained, Bob here again, a lot of things contained within. I was having thoughts earlier, somebody said something about the influences on us, like you've got to have an Apple Watch. Well, do I really need an Apple Watch? Do I really need a new iPad or a new iPhone? So a lot of these desires are implanted because corporations understand through motivational and research into what brings about changes in people. They know how to advertise to access the subconscious mind and plant desires. So that's one level. But in terms of our highest one, which I think you were addressing, how do we really know which are the ones that are really important for us? Let me just relate what happened to me. I've been studying hypnosis at what I considered the best schools all over the United States. And it was gathering information, and there were some people in Detroit, therapists in the Detroit, Michigan area, who were begging me to start a program and teach them what I did. And I felt inadequate for it. These were people who were already licensed counselors and whatever, and PhD psychologists. And I really didn't. And I wore out more shoes being dragged along. So I went to a person who I respected, who does hypnosis, and using a process that's called ideodynamic signaling. It bypasses the cerebral cortex thinking mind and able to connect them with the higher levels of consciousness with the yes and no binary communication. So I had two questions for him. One, am I supposed to do this thing at all? And if I am, the date that's come to mind is October 16th. And I had so much resistance to it, I was sure that the answer was going to come back no. But I was in a deep state of hypnosis, and he said the answer came back yes to both of them. So that's one way I know in the work I do of accessing those levels is in a deep state, connecting in with the higher mind through an ideodynamic process, and then asking questions about whether this is a fruitful past. Is there any part of me that's holding back that from manifesting? So, and then you just go from there and find the wounded parts or the parts that hold contrary beliefs, release the emotional charge from them, look at the beliefs around the experiences of reform that make the feelings of inferiority or not being worthy or fear of being burned to the stake again from a past life.
Again.
And so you clear those out and do soul retrieval as necessary, and the way becomes clear then to manifest that in.
I just wanted to make a comment regarding the question you posed originally, Judith, which is to know how you're pursuing your soul's true purpose. And I want to look at it from a little more secular point of view. I was thinking of a famous mathematician by the name of Andrew Weil. And he became famous because he proved Fermat's last theorem, which was a mathematical problem that had been sitting on the shelves for several hundred years. And if you look at his biography, he actually had learned about that problem when he was about 8 years old. And he thought it was a fascinating problem. And I think, one way to see if we're on the right path is to dig back down into things we thought about when we were just children, things we dreamt about doing then, that, our role models and idols. back then. If it's stuff that really captured our imagination then, probably we're going to have the enthusiasm and the passion for it now.
That's brilliant, Steve. Honestly, I, as a child, had images of doing exactly what I'm doing now, and I would look at those and say, that's crazy. I'm never going to stand up on a stage and talk about God. That is not going to happen. I don't even believe in that junk. You know? I mean, as a child, I did. But as I got older and I kept, those images would flit in, I would see it over and over and over again. And, you know, in a way, a very fairly vivid way, I've been doing just that for decades now. And it's the most natural thing in the world. And as a writer, I was a freelance writer for 30 years in Baton Rouge before, and I would go and interview people for these articles. And every Monday there would be a big feature. I'd spend 2 to 4 hours with each person I was interviewing, and every single time, without fail, what people, because I'd start with their childhood. I'd say, tell me about your parents. What were your dreams as a child? Everything they were doing went all the way back to childhood. I mean, literally hundreds of people over 4 years I interviewed. It was always that way. Some part of them knew, and I think you're right that that is a very clean and unerring way to get in touch with your heart's desire, is because as a child you didn't have that idiopathic thing you were talking about, Bob, cortex in the way to say, oh, you can't do that, or oh, that won't work. You were just this little alpha, theta, delta child,
Right.
still in the memory of who you really are, if you had a decent childhood and were still innocent.
Right. There are so many paths, though, as an adult that dream can manifest in. And that's, I think, is the difficult part of the choice, because you might succeed in some and fail in others. You know, you say you had this dream of standing up and talking about God to people, and it seemed absurd at the time. But you're not a minister. You're not a priest. I mean, well, but I mean, in other words, there's so many different ways that could have manifested, and you stumbled upon a truly unique way of doing it. So I think that's really, you know, the big part of the challenge is how do I manifest? In what avenue and what channel do I go?
Yeah. And I've done it both ways. I've given a lot of talks in churches and stuff, unity churches, which are as secular as you can get.
Right,
But yeah. And, you know, the God thing is certainly charged. I really prefer to see it as a quantum sea of light. But when I'm in touch with that quantum sea of light, I perceive it as a loving force. So I quite understand how religious people got to that concept of a father figure or a mother figure, or even an animal totem concept. But I think that part of us in childhood knew. Was it that way? Let's hear from other people. Did you feel as a child that you were connected to what it is that makes you feel alive and joyful now?
This is Sylvia, and I would have to say that in terms of professionally, I really wasn't connected at all and didn't have any idea that I would end up being an intuitive reader or someone who speaks about connecting with one's higher wisdom, and I love the phrase quantum sea of light. And that definitely resonates with me. But I can only say that then Judy, you're going to smile when I say this, dancing is probably the only thing that I've connected with as a child that brings me a great deal of joy. But I kind of tell people that I'm a perfect argument for reincarnation, because my profession and hobbies and avocations, you would not ever imagine that, knowing my family background and childhood. it was a mystery to me until I started delving into deeper levels of the mind and doing past life regression and things like that. And I'm grateful to Judy for what many of these explorations of deeper levels of my mind. Well, she was the guide, and probably
with the mind mirror, only with the mind mirror.
With the mind mirror, and probably a high priestess in previous lives, because. And just as an aside, I'm finding that the record keepers will speak about, when they're talking about someone's past life abilities, they will often remind people that the functions that are filled by mystics or shamans or therapists or scientific practitioners, they were called different things in different societies. So not to get tripped up on the terminology, but most societies have always benefited from someone who was a wisdom keeper or a truth teller. I'm sorry, I think I wandered off topic a bit, but
no, not at all. I was just going to say, though, that it doesn't surprise me that you didn't go to the intuitive possibilities for your life as a child. Not only because of your environment, but if I may say, and if I remember correctly, you were persecuted in past lives for that.
Yes.
And that you had to do a lot, you had to really work through, because you had this urge. As long as I've known you, which is the 20 years I've been up here in the Northeast, as long as I've known you, you've always had the urge. And even before that, you were one of the founders and drivers of the Edgar Cayce Center up here in New York City, and we're always attracted. I mean, I don't even know how far back that goes, but a very long way, and always had this drive to be an intuitive reader. But here you were on the international writing team for a major cosmetics company and making a lot of money in Manhattan, and you really had to work through all of that past life trepidation. So it doesn't surprise me that you didn't find it in childhood.
Yes.
Your ego would have clamped down on that in a split second, said, "Oh, been there, burned," or whatever.
Absolutely. It's interesting what Bob said, because I will often, say, burned at the stake once too often. Is the way I phrase it. Yes, so I did have to find my way through a lot of that and release it and forgive myself. And that's something that is, as you all know, such a powerful technique, forgiveness. And then I also will note that since I was in a creative field as an advertising writer, that I think being a creative, so to speak, even though I was in the corporate world for many years, I think that gave me the impetus, or it sort of opened the pathway to the deeper mind, the creative well. And going there, even though it was for a more superficial cosmetic approach, it still was a pathway. And I found that I enjoyed following that, even in recreational reading, sci-fi, fantasy, things of that nature, stimulating the imagination. And I'm now coming back to the fact that our imagination is such a vital part of who we are and how we create our reality, and how we connect with the quantum sea of light to do that, whatever we call that quantum sea of light.
Yeah, and so Sylvia, you're the perfect person to pose this question to. And if I might also, after you, pose it to Marc Gilles, who has just joined us from Geneva. Because Marc is a medical doctor, and he had to make a shift into a very far out and beautiful style of energy healing. So what is it, first Sylvia, then Mark, if you'll answer, that gave you the impetus or the impelling power, the drive to blast beyond any obstacles within yourself and outside of yourself to follow the call of your higher self?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, just in terms of my own, the narrative of my life, I wasn't really that interested in pursuing this until my midlife crisis at what we used to call midlife, which was around 35, or late 30s. And it was because it was prompted by my father's passing. And I had a great relationship with my father and missed him very much. And of course, and I was at an age where you think your parents are just going to live forever. At least I did. And so that started me questing into, there's got to be more than this material world. That started it, but I think there was also seeded into this life a lot of plans, pre-life plans or between life plans, that I would recover more and more of who I really am at the soul level, and bring more and more of what was the seeds planted in past lives. And I think that was the impetus, including connections with Edgar Cayce and the Edgar Cayce Soul Group that I have become aware of, and continuing that type of work. And I'll just close by noting that the record keepers often refer to a soul's planning as being multi-incarnational and multi-generational. And many of us are looking from this higher view of the totality of who we are. We are looking at the big picture. And we're not just planning, here's one incarnation. We're planning for through cycles of human evolution. And our own evolution is in sync with that. So that's it.
That's quite an expansion from an advertising writer, don't you think? To looking at all of your cycles of evolution. And so then, so thank you for that, Sylvia. That was beautifully expressed. May I turn to you now, Mark, and just say, how did you know that that there was this healing power within you, not just through medicines but a source of energy within you that could be channeled, that you could connect to? And when did you figure that out, and how?
Okay, I'm not talking so good English, so I try to answer to your question. So I didn't know that I had this ability to have energy and to send energy like that. So it was something I discovered. What's your question?
What got you involved in what you're doing with the Lemurian code healing now?
So what I'm doing is just to try to give some energy to some points corresponding to the hologram. So the hologram in the body is in our Earth, and so we can connect some points on the body to the Earth with solar activation. So it's the way I treat my patient in Code Lemuria healing.
What was it that moved you toward doing that kind of work? Because it's very different from being an allergist and an immunologist, isn't it?
So probably I go in this direction because of my wife was ill a few years ago, and it was a diagnosis with poor prognosis. So it means that in a way I find that the allopathic medicine was not enough, and I decided to open me to other views and so complementary medicines. So this is why I try to do like that. And so I opened me to this kind of different possibilities. And the first thing I do was a reflexotherapy. The name was Tien Chan, a Vietnamese coming from Vietnam. And then I choose to go to the magnetism direction. And so a woman teach me about that. So it was progressively that I opened my mind to other things. And the first thing I wanted to change in my way to see life is to come at home. So without worry about my future and the future of my wife. So I decided to come with more open opinion, so that I can be in positive emotion thoughts when I come at home back from my job. So it was the first direction I decided to go there.
And it has proved to be not only fulfilling and joyful work for you, as I know, because I've seen you in Geneva perform this, and I've also seen your rather extraordinary, may I say, gamma brainwaves. Soon I'm going to put on the Mind Mirrors research page the study I did with you and Liz Lebrecht in Lyon, France. So it's proved to be joyful and fulfilling, but hasn't it also, and I'm asking this because I don't know the answer, has it also been something that feels like it might have been destined that you expand into?
What do you mean?
Well, destiny, the idea that, oh, this is what I have been moving toward my whole life.
Yes, maybe it could be my destiny. So I know that I have to teach something like with energetical healing, and I'm doing that now. So for the first time in December, I begin to teach my healing experience in Code Lemuria. And so now I was late to come to this session because I was hearing about Lynn McTaggart. She was doing a master class. So I'm going in this direction too. So to the intention group, and to see about what I can teach to other people for that.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
So I think that Mark has added another dimension here to how do we become aware of and then manifest our desires, and that is that, and I've certainly found this true in my own life, despite whatever direction I was going into, that there seemed to be some undercurrent, that external circumstances could turn me in a certain direction, which ended up being the direction that I had either always wanted to go in and not known how, or at times had no idea was the right direction. And then when I got on that path, realized that, oh, well, wasn't I lucky that this and that happened? Yeah, so life can lead us. It doesn't have to come from within us as we connect with the field in meditation, or remember what it was that we did as loved as children. It can be that life leads us that way. Life itself, as in Mark's situation with his wife, his expansion that he made to help his wife.
I agree, and I think it doesn't hurt to look at it on a more mundane level, that we do make changes in order to increase our sense of security and self-satisfaction and provide for people we love in one way or another. And I spend a lot of time in meditation, and I think that's primarily where my mind is going. But I mean, that sounds mundane, but you might have to reach to a very high level before you get an answer, on the other hand, also to that.
Right. And you have to be able to reach that high level. But then this actually brings up an interesting question. do you have to be a special person to reach that high level, or is it simply a matter of intention and desire to reach that high level? And I'll just say, and then open this up to other people. Well, we have this. We actually we have this wonderful graphic in Awakened Mind training, practitioner training, and I'll just draw it for you to show it. It's really fun. All along, we're saying that people have to have this brainwave pattern in order to be able to get an insight. That is, the mind needs to be united. And indeed, this one thing says that, no, if you have a desire to reach a, let me find, there we go. If you have a desire to understand something or reach a goal or whatever, then you can have a brainwave pattern that has alpha, no theta, maybe some delta, and an asymmetry on the other side with no alpha here. Suddenly there's theta here, and then there's no delta here. And as I wrote in my Psychic Soul book, if your higher self wants you to know something, it's going to find a way to get that information from the unconscious to the conscious level.
Sure will.
Yeah, you will get it. Has anybody ever had that experience of driving down the street and you're maybe being careless and something yells at you, "You could get in a wreck! Slow down!" And you turn around and say, "Who said that?" I mean, you will get the message one way or the other. And I would make a case that that the manifestation of events in our lives that turn us in directions, that the undercurrents of events and people and events, and then dreams, and that all of these things are manifestations of that greater and more expansive self managing to get us the message one way or another.
Very true.
Well, do you agree with that? Or is it just happenstance and random?
No, I believe it's planned. This is Sylvia. It's guided, and that we do plan these incarnations. The record keepers express it as we plan our lives with the Council of Elders and the Weavers of Time, and that the Weavers of Time are to, once the plan is set, to weave a tapestry of potentials where that would bring to us the circumstances and situations and relationships that would assist us in staying on course. I know it's a mystical concept, but that's the way the record keepers refer to it.
And I wonder if we can hear from Reinhard or Cy, Arvid, Herb, Stan, Andrew, anybody who hasn't spoken yet. What's your opinion on all of this? What's your take on anything that we've brought up so far? Are we just a bunch of goofballs, or is there a shred of truth in any of it?
Yeah, there is. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there is certainly a way for life to guide you to some place, even if you do not realize you are going there yourself as your mind. That certainly happens in a lot of cases, and sometimes just a random solution to something shows up in your head. Usually after just waking up in the morning. That's quite common, or also in dreams for me. I have quite a lot of, well, not a lot, but I've been having more and more lucid dreams over the past few years, and they can prove very insightful into issues that I need to resolve and so on.
Beautiful.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yep.
If you're going down a certain path and you're starting to have bad dreams, should you, I mean, should you act on that? I mean, that's kind of been happening to me a little bit sometimes. I get a really, I mean, and weird dreams don't bother me, but if they get bad, should you really reassess your course that you're pursuing? I mean, and can you connect your dreams with your, or could it just, the dreams be caused by something unrelated?
Arvid, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer the question, but I can give my take on it. And dreams can be vague at times. That's one of the downsides of them, I guess, for this. For example, recently I have been having a lot of dreams, and that's when something shows up reoccurring in a dream. That's, I think, is a stronger signal than if it's just a one-off dream. For example, recently I'm having a lot of dreams about train and train stations. I have no idea what's it about, but it's been like, I think, 5 dreams in the past 2 weeks. So it's something that I need to resolve. And also for me, at least, it's usually not only dreams. Like it's something starts showing up as coincidences. Like, oh, not some place I read articles suddenly has an article on this thing, and some other place mentions it. Like this actually happened with manifestation recently. I saw this webinar showed up, your email message showed up, and then there was a couple of other places the manifestation showed up recently. And I think it was yesterday a video from Eckhart Tolle showed up in my YouTube feed on manifestation. So clearly there's something here, too many coincidences to be a coincidence kind of thing. So, but yeah, bad dreams, and so it's at least worth trying to understand what's going on and see if you need to reassess, or if it's just, it can be hard to interpret what the dream relates to in certain cases.
That's helpful, yeah.
Yeah.
Check physical first, Steve. Like, make sure that if you're having torrid dreams, I found that I have those when I'm either hungry in the middle of the night, or it's too hot in the room, or I've stayed up too late, or I've eaten dinner too late. First, exclude those. Once you've excluded those as factors, then try to just write down every single one of those dreams. And then after a few days, if you're not able to get insights into them in either ordinary consciousness, walking around during the day, okay, plant this seed, what was that about? Or in meditation, by saying with a piece of paper, what was that about? Because if you run the dream back through your mind while you're in meditation, well, your brainwaves are going to go back into the dream. So that's your best way to unscramble the dream. But if you don't get answers in those 2 ways, I would be really astonished.
I think what Arvid said is very helpful, that it's a matter of whether it's a recurring type of thing. A one-off dream, maybe not to worry about too much. But if it's recurring, then yeah, I would write it down, and then I would try to meditate.
Yes.
And sometimes what you can do also is, just as you're drifting off to sleep the night before, or after you have such a pattern that's coming up, and saying, I want to have a dream tonight that will clarify what this reoccurring pattern has been. Please present it to me in a new way so I can understand what's attempting to be revealed to me.
Nice.
Because we all make mistakes, and it could be just, I just really blew it one day, and then that's what caused that dream, and I'm not going to make that same mistake again. But if you keep making the same mistake over and over, then I think it could be a recurring bad dream, and then you better look at your behavior more closely.
Sai, you're sending us a message. I wonder if you want to unmute and just ask that out loud to people.
Sure, I can certainly do that. Yeah, I was contemplating your question, and I think that connecting in with a meditative state or a higher state of mind certainly allows that pathway of communication with our higher self, or our spirit guides, whatever, so you can be more attuned that when that message comes in, you're not driving and reaching your, head around the back seat to see who's talking to you. So it's much more of an ongoing back and forth, communication. But I'm just wondering how, being in those states, if there's a process or ways that we can incorporate a manifestation of a desire that we think we would like to see in our lives, how we can do that more effectively in those states of meditation. And that's what still rises to my mind. Is there a way that we can see that a little bit better in those states?
Well, you would most definitely be in an active, problem-solving, awakened mind if you are consulting your heart or your spirit or even your body to ascertain whether a desire is valid or whether it's a good one for you to follow. Everything that you want to look at is always going to be an awakened mind state just to begin with. But the moment that you begin to connect with your spirit, well, then you could have some evolved mind flares. And if you stay with this long enough, then you could have some gamma there. So it's going to be one of those patterns, one of those brainwave patterns, because those are the patterns you see of coherence. And if you're incoherent and your thoughts are bouncing all around like they tend to do during daily life when we are stimulated from so many different directions by so many different things, then that's not the state of consciousness that you would want to do inner inquiry. But if you're in a very coherent state where your brainwaves are symmetrical, where all categories are firing simultaneously, where there's an open flow of awareness, you can feel that because that's a state of inner peace. And in fact, this brings me back to something somebody brought up when we first started. I think it was Bob. And you asked, what about alpha? And that would be where alpha comes in, is that bridge to the thinking mind, quieting the thinking mind and giving us access to our long-term memories and our essential being in theta. And then you asked also about what role does heart rate coherence play in this? And that would be the same exact answer, is when you are in that open flow of the awakened mind or a higher state, you're going to have heart rate coherence, heart-brain coherence, so that your mind and your body are doing the same thing, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, body and soul, however you want to see it. That's what coherence is all about.
And that's the most likely time when manifestation happens with that pattern?
Absolutely. That's definitely when you can ascertain, but that is definitely when you're going to be able to manifest and see what happened, see that synchronicity,
Maybe, Judith, may I add here, it's maybe we are still talking about staying, you say open flow, staying in the innocent state, which implies you are pure, you're like white, white board, nothing written there, you're quietened your beta and you are like ready to receive. Still some beta is there to process this information, these messages coming up from other levels, subtle messages to be deciphered with your conscious brain. But we keep coming back to the same thing, really: awakened mind and evolved mind and coherent patterns. And it's all about, awakening. It's about hearing your intuition. It's about meditation and stop this flow of thoughts, hectic flow of thoughts in your mind. And the best example that you probably heard is, imagine your thoughts as a river, with lots of rubbish floating. Task is not to jump into this river plain with all this rubbish, and that's what your mind will do to you with all these stimuli that we are exposed to every single day, with programs that are imposed on us. the answer will always be quieten that, find the ways, whether it's, you know, your meditation, whether this is awakened mind training, whether this is meditative writings to some people, where this is art or some creative project, creative work, creative process in any form for other people that will open that well. And or practice of silence that I mentioned again, it's the same story. It's there to stop that rubbish from floating, purify you, open you up, relax again. Start with your body, do body techniques. If you can't sense and feel what's yours, where is your truth, whether this is true desire or not, you have just to stop and say, work on your body. If your body lost its sensitivity, try relaxation techniques, body techniques, sports, energy work, even simple massage. Anything with the body may help you to get back, and try to disconnect. I would recommend highly, you know, that's why also Aikireaders and shaman, they prefer quieter environments, or at least from time to time they need to kind of go away and sit in nature and just purify themselves from all this hectic everyday life, all the noise. Really, we live in highly polluted environment, information environment, so we can hear what's coming. And we didn't cover a few more questions, Judith. If you don't mind, I'll throw them back in, because the time is flying fast, and it's really a great discussion, and I'm thankful to all the contributors. So I think that when we were talking about goals and desires, that was one of the questions. I think it's important to cover that. So I'll say, and then leave it to others to join. Desire, it's just you may desire something, but there is no kind of strong intention there. Goal is when you set an intention, when you stay kind of keep it in your focus, right? So you really, it's the beginning of manifestation of your desire, so to say, because you set the focus, you set the vector, you say, this is the direction I want to go, right? And again, I'll remind you from this health management, from physiology, goal is defined as your future result. So basically, you know that you are in point A, you want to get into point B, and you know how that point B, that realized goal, is felt like. And they say that since we are all live beings, all life, it wants to adapt to constantly changing environment, constantly changing conditions. We have to adapt, survive, and evolve through that. And somehow, physiologically, our body knows, we have in our brain these indicators of the future result already. And as we keep moving towards the goal, we sense kind of whether we are on the right path or not, whether we have to change our actions. And I think it's very good to know that, again, from that theory, we are not driven from our past, not just by stimuli, but we are driven by our future in a way. We are driven by future result. We are driven by our goals that are kind of, they're pulling us into the future. And I think that's an interesting way to look at things. And also, how do you want, like, the nature of goals means they keep you focused. And as we mentioned last time, you remember David gave a great exercise during this Winning Mindset program, saying blue, 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 blue. When you keep thinking about blue, and then you kind of look around, all you see is blue. So if you remind yourself of your goals each morning, that will help you to keep the mindset focused and open to receive messages from the universe related to realization or manifestation of your goal. And of course, thinking of your goal, it should energize you and excite you. And here I want to maybe I'll name the questions that we had and ask Sylvia, would be perfect candidate to answer these questions. What do you think is destiny? So is it that pre-planned divine plan with us co-creating with these timekeepers throughout the lifetimes? And then we are guided by life, how we see it. We are guided by life till we have these turning points, people showing up. even sometimes, you know, crisis happening, some bad events happening, pushing us in the right direction. And again, how much is destiny there, how much we are co-creating, with whom we are co-creating. And in the end, like, what is luck? You know, what means, like, what facilitates our manifestation? That would be very interesting to know. I think, is it like, if the goal says about other people, if we are, say, transmitters of the God's desire, of the Creator's desire on earth, and we are just emissaries, and we are kind of helping to create better world, and through that we are becoming better and bigger selves as well, does it mean that the more people will benefit from our goals, the less selfish they are, the more support we will get from the universe to manifest these goals? Or we just had lots of, I don't know, say good karma from previous lives, kind of good bank account, and that's why we are lucky in this lifetime, and we kind of get things happening for us easier or faster than for other people. So I would like to hear what people have to say on this, because I have some ideas, but I don't have all the answers. Thank you.
Okay.
So I mentioned destiny, co-creators, and luck. So.
Okay. Yes, this is Sylvia. You mentioned my name in there, so I'm trying to understand the question and the arc of the question. But I would add, having mentioned about the what I'm receiving about the pre-life planning, the record keepers will speak to pre-life agreements. And they will quickly clarify and say, notice that we do not say contracts. We respect your free will. And that's one thing that comes up that seems paramount in the way that the spiritual or universal law is structured, that our free will is respected. And sometimes, so that what we create of our own free will is honored by the universe. Yet, at times, we're creating perhaps not with our whole brain, or not holistically, or we're creating from some patterns that are very limiting, or the belief structures that keep us locked in certain behavior patterns. So I would say that it seems as though free will trumps destiny, at least in what I've received, because because sovereignty is such an important concept, and perhaps it's called by different things. The mastery or self-realization, self-actualization certainly is a very coherent concept with the idea of sovereignty, especially as the record keepers and other sources have defined it as the free will ability, or God-given or birthright, to be the ruler of our consciousness. Our kingdom is our consciousness. Yeah, and there's a lot of course, as we're aware, distortion around the whole idea of who is a ruler and who is not, and who is a sovereign and who is not. And I'm looking at the phrase divine right of kings. That has been something that seems to be a template or a program that we've been running on earth, as some people having this divine right and most people not. And now I'm looking at it with the new definition that the divine right of kings is the birthright of each human being as a free will being to rule our consciousness and be our own authorities or spiritual authorities on how we live our lives and the choices we make. Of course, with that, making choices and being responsible comes the responsibility to understand the consequences of what we're creating. So I think well, I'll pass the baton on to the next person.
All this is really exciting, and I'm looking at all your questions differently now, Oksana, and I'm starting to get meaning from it. But once again, I'm bringing it down to the mundane level because I'm thinking, look, your situation in life is limiting. I mean, we have to face facts, and being lucky and unlucky is a fact of life. Like, I mean, you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You could be accused of a crime, end up in prison. Now, I have heard a story of an awakened person, a self-actualized person who ended up in solitary confinement, and the way he got through is by imagining chess games in his head. He played chess games in his head against himself to keep from going crazy in solitary confinement. So I mean, you know, when we're all co-creators, we all are in a situation. We're all in a social situation. We have partners and so forth. And that's going to determine in a large part what we can create. But on the other hand, there's an attitudinal aspect, because the way we think draws certain people, attracts certain people to us. We end up in different situations. So, like, you know, when I was in high school, I just felt like a real loner. I mean, there wasn't anybody like me. But by the time I got to college, I went to a technical college. There were lots of people like me. It was just completely freed up my mind. You know, I have all these new possibilities, and I'm not crazy. I mean, all these things I was thinking that were important to do, that there are people that think they're important to do. So, I mean, luck is a big part of that. I might not have been accepted to that college, or something could have happened to my dad, you know, who helped me through college. So, I mean, maybe it's due to your different culture that you come from, Oksana. You kind of have an interesting take on this as far as luck goes.
Thank you, Steve. And
so anyway, as far as the general thing that we were talking about, I mean, and you know, reaching up to higher states of consciousness and all that. I mean, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to lift yourself above known sociological constraints, and even to some extent known psychological constraints. You're trying to lift yourself above that. You're trying to find some kind of a higher power, either outside yourself or within yourself, that will guide you in the correct direction.
So I want to take that baton now, because I have something I just love to share. So I had all these same questions about what is destiny, what is fate, because reading world literature, you know, you can get hubris, the harpies can jump on you if you don't follow your path of destiny. And it was always very, very confusing to me, until back in 1987, and I started doing meditative writing. And it wasn't long before I asked this question, what is destiny? And it said, destiny is a combination of its being there within you, defined by who you are, and your reaching for it. And that just made the most incredible sense to me, because now what it's saying is that it's about your gifts, your talents, your limitations, your self-imposed limitations, your real, not real limitations, your brilliance, your ability to overcome obstacles. Everything that's in you is going to manifest into your destiny if and only if you reach for it. Now, how could you not reach for it? Well, you could sit there like a ball of wax and, you know, never leave your house. So then you're not going to reach your destiny. But in another way, you are going to reach your destiny, because whatever it is that's made you a ball of wax is going to leave you right there. So I really loved it too, because there's no guilt, there's no external control or coercion, there's no idea of limitation. I mean, if you see this quantum sea of light as a field of plasmic gas, which is what it also is, then you have a energetic presence, a signature, a holographic, to go back to Mark's word, presence that is the distillation of all that you are on whatever level, all the way up into the field, into the plasma. And here you are surrounded by wherever it was that you had to land by resonance to meet whatever challenges lie before you by resonance. Or even if you exclude resonance and say, well, I just dropped down in the middle of the desert by accident, well, it doesn't matter. There's still a destiny for you. It's still going to be the outcome of who you are, what you need, and all you have to do is reach for it. Doesn't that make sense to you too?
I like the idea that we have a signature, and I saw that because when I did a training at one of Anna Wise's workshops, there was a young woman who had a very distinctive signature, and it also showed up in her brainwaves too. And it's like sort of everybody, when they come in the room, they just sort of know what this person is all about. You know, they just kind of exude a certain thing, and everybody has an idea who they are and why they're there and everything. And then if what people are not sure about, they clarify. She came and she said, well, I'm looking for, somebody for a relationship. So everybody knew. But it's like, if you're not in touch with yourself, you don't really have a clear signature. People aren't sure what to make of you. And so as a result, your destiny or your fate or whatever is a lot more uncertain. You have a lot less control over it.
Yeah. But you don't really, because it's going to be whoever you are. Just reach for it. Know that it's within you. It's actually the other part of it. It says that you are spinning out your destiny before you at all times.
But I mean, if you're confused about yourself, how can you be spinning it out? Though that's why
You're spinning out your confusion and headed straight for it.
Yeah, no, and let the life sort it out for you. So you'll be kicked here, kicked there, and pushing you still in the right direction. Because at least if you're on the wrong path, it will tell you you're on the wrong, and then most likely you'll start it will make you more conscious. That's what I think. Like being kicked many times, it will force you to sit and clear all that and say, what's going wrong here? I need to do something about it, right? And that will force you to lift your perspective to another level, yes, and correct your course along the way. And yeah, that's the whole what the whole show is about. I think it's getting to those higher levels, so you are more in line with this bigger perspective. And the good thing about life, I agree, it will eventually, the nature of it is, it will kick you. It will be the ultimate teacher and correct you along your path, even if you think that it's not quite working. And Judith, I like what you mentioned about resonance, because I think talking about manifestation, you have to remember about all this vibrational frequency, or you said energetic signature, but that's what other people pick up. That's our subconscious, which is this our senses, so to say. We pick up from others, like who they are, what they are like, even not knowing, consciously very often, but we still sense all these things. And the trick here is to learn to basically stick to your goal, stick to your creative nature and trust, and hold the vibration for your goals to manifest. Because yes, through that vibration you will attract, by the law of resonance, the things that you need for manifestation. And most likely, again, luck will fall into the same direction. You'll just be in resonance, in harmony, and it will be a path, like easier lane out there for you.
I was just going to say, may I bring up another concept before we sign off? And Sylvia will resonate with this, and anybody else who thinks about it energetically. And it's that I found that the best way to purify myself so that I'm spinning forward my best destiny with the angels of my better nature is to do good. This was a big Edgar Cayce concept. And he said it over and over again. You cooperate with other people. You look for common solutions. You perform random acts of kindness. If, as a resonator, and I don't mean this selfishly, as a resonator, if you want to create a critical mass of energy that will coalesce into your goals, and pure goals. Because I've done it the wrong way. I've, manifested people who were not good for me by having the wrong goals. Then just do good. Do things in love and out of love and for love and kindness, and that changes your own frequency as a resonator, but it also will attract something higher to you. It puts you in touch with your higher self, for want of a better word. It opens up a pathway of energy, for energy to flow from the field into your life. It does all the work. It does all the work. And it's so simple. It's so simple. It's just to do good. Does that make sense?
I really like that, and I've been thinking a lot about that. And doing good is hard because it's so hard. It's hard to really help people. You do things you think will help a person, but it isn't really what they need. It wasn't really all that good for them. And so this, I guess maybe I'm kind of understanding your more abstract terminology now. I mean, it has to resonate. It has to resonate that not only you feel it's good, but you get the kind of vibes back from people, that you're a good person, you're doing good. And it can come in very subtle ways. Maybe they don't actually say anything. Maybe it's just the way people start treating you differently. Or it might be an action they take that just indirectly shows that they really appreciate what you're doing. So I think doing good is one of the most challenging things, really, because you can't rely on people to tell you. You got to apply. You got to appeal to a higher sense of understanding.
But it can be very simple. It can be a smile for a passerby who might be having a horrid day. My grandson, he brings light everywhere he goes because he loves to compliment people on their hairdo or how they're dressed or what they just said. I mean, he is an absolute bringer of light, and people are so ready to respond, to be happy. I mean, you can work in a food bank. There's so many ways to love other people without, getting, as you said, invested in their stuff. That's where you certainly can make some mistakes, and I would not advise that, and wouldn't even do it for myself. But there's no reason we can't do simple little things like, sign up for a tutoring program for children, because those often end up becoming our pathways to our goals. I mean, this is how you end up getting that job that is your goal, that somebody knows somebody and meets you in some. You see, it's to get out of yourself, basically, to take all the love and the kindness that you can tap into and muster inside, to take it out into the physical world and brighten things up.
So you're kind of implying it's kind of like a practice makes perfect kind of thing. Do it on a small scale, and then you learn, and keep learning how to do it better.
Yeah, exactly.
Judith, in other words, I heard it starts from giving, basically. If you want to receive, you have to put the switch on, and the switch is not sitting there like a black hole, like a vortex sucking all the universe goodness in. Give me, give me, give me. No, you start giving, and then it kind of comes back to you. So you, the center, and you start this inflow of things, because we all are interconnected. So you put the switch by giving, and people always ask, what can I give? You can give something that you have. Obviously you can't give something that you don't have. And Judith was right. Keep it, you may start keeping it simple, but then all of us, we are gifted with different things. At least we all have our life time. We have time, right? We have our bodies, so we can smile. Yes, we have body like to give a nice touch and be kind to someone, like you're kind to dogs and animals if you like them. So it's like no difference. And I agree with you. Important note there is to be subtle and listen, right? To be in tuned And the trick is, when the more in tune you are with yourself, the more you are listening and in tune and aligned with yourself, with your truth, with your authentic self, divine plans, if you like, the more in tune you'll be, or the more you will be able to hear what other people need, whether they speak out loud about their needs or whether it's a silent request for help. So the trick there is, whatever what's inwardly, your inner work will always come first and then be extrapolated to outer world, right? So it's staying that in tune, it's very subtle, and you have to be quiet to hear. You have to listen to hear. And this world is full of violence, and I'm coming from the culture which basically is quite pushy and violent. Here is my help, take it, and you're like, oh no, thank you. So I still have to work on that with me. It's just part of the culture I was brought in with. So it's part of me, and I have to recognize. And as you see, psyche abilities, all this comes to people who are very, usually they're good in nature. They're very, like, ethical, if you can say so, right, Judith? Am I using the right word? Like,
Yeah,
they
sure.
have high moral standards, and that way they see more truth for themselves and for others, and they're very gentle. Very, very gentle. And anything like good, it comes with this gentle nature. It comes with love. And whenever it's pushy, it's something else. It's your mind, probably it's not coming from the right place, the right direction. And looking forward, because one of the things, what do we see in 2019? Basically, probably, Judith, we may wish everyone to ride on these currents of love and light, evolving yourself and helping others. And whatever comes on your way, I agree with Destiny, it's just still in a way, you are attracting it, you are drawing it with your conscious or unconscious goals. You're drawing, you're vibrating, you're drawing through resonance this experience to yourself. And the best way is to stay in touch with your wisdom, stay in trust, stay creative, and remember about all these principles we were talking about today, and remember that it's coming for your good, even if the face is ugly of what you see, and it's something that you didn't expect. It's something that you drew for your own good. In ultimate, I also liked what one trainer said, or teacher said, just think, this is a spiritual training. This is psychological training, if you don't like the word spiritual training. It's like, look at life as a school, this is a training. I'm in training. Oh, it's tough, but I'm in training. And that will kind of set the right attitude as well to hardships, if, as I said, the face is ugly. So, Judith?
Well said. Well said, Oksana. I wonder if Sylvia has anything to add to that.
I do, thank you. And I just wanted to, for me, it's so important, the spirit in which I do an act of kindness. And at times, and I also am very much aware of, or strive to be aware of, what am I resonating to, as Judith and Oksana both said. Am I holding energies of, my goal is to hold energies of kindness, love, compassion. Gratitude is a big one. And that's something that I want to, if I enter a subway car in New York City and it's crowded, I want to bring a vibration of ease, that things are going to happen, that I'm grateful for this subway, and thinking kind thoughts about those who are on the car, even those standing in the door that I think, that I might normally get a little annoyed with. But I find that the frequency that I hold, if it's one of these higher frequencies, is I'm more likely to be happy with the outcome. and more likely to respond from my heart rather than just my annoyance of, oh, there's always someone blocking the door. And this is a just very simple, ordinary, everyday example and very practical. But I just find also that I work with, for example, with my clients, and if someone seems to need a little bit of financial help, or I kind of use my intuition, and with the belief that if I'm generous to my clients, then the universe will be generous to me. It might not come from that person. And I do find that when I do things in that spirit of the vibration of generosity, that lo and behold, something does come. Something does come to me unexpectedly. But if I fixate on that it's got to come from that person that I've been generous with, then that shuts off the flow. And because I've been there, done that, and it didn't work very well, or I wasn't as happy with the outcome. So I think we're all talking about this same technique. Thank you.
You're not talking about generosity in the sense of like philanthropy, of just, you're talking about it more in a spiritual way, like generosity in that you feel you have something you can give to this person on a personal level, right? On a spiritual level. Am I correct?
Yes, but I also include that if I'm giving to a nonprofit organization, then I want to hold the feeling, the belief that that I give it without any strings attached, or for a particular, or any expectations, that once I give it, it's theirs. And
you
so
trust
I don't
them.
want to have. Yeah, but I'm trusting the universe that this comes back to me. But I've over and over, I found that if I am attached to it coming back to me from a particular source, it shuts down that wonderful universal flow.
Right. Yeah, I know that.
I limit it. But yeah, I think this could be applied, and this would be in my heart that one of my goals, dreams, is to be what I call an enlightened philanthropist, and to be in the position of being grateful for the abundance of resources that I have, that I can use to benefit others.
This has been a dynamite program. Lots of really great ideas. It feels complete to me. Does it feel pretty complete to you guys? Or does it need a part 2?
There is something I would like to add to this latest discussion, which is that it very strongly reminds me of the giving and getting things back. Reminds me of the classic golden rule: do unto others as you wish done unto yourself. There is a very lot of commonality between these two concepts, I think.
Yes, perfect.
Judith, I can only add to what Sylvia, thank her for, because she's truly holding this vibration that she was describing. Just Sylvia, just from your voice, I can feel that, love and kindness, and it's amazing. It's a pleasure just to listen to you, what you are saying. And thank you for participating in this program. And I just want to remind you two little things, that it's a great thing to be thankful for what we have, for this experience, for everything, because gratitude is another key to opening the door of love. So it's like, if you can't open to love, it sounds too abstract, not quite sure. At least we all are pretty familiar with the concept of gratitude, right? So not sure, but want to amplify more good in your life. So keep thanking. And do it every evening, every morning, and I'm sure you'll be good. In the evening, think of what was good during this day for you, and in the morning you'll wake up energized. And remember that when we are giving, actually it looks like that everything we have belongs to us, but again, we are so interconnected. We're actually more like letting the life energy streaming through us, let this light and love, flow through us, through staying open. You do not limit yourself to your own resources, whatever they are, financial, energetic, etc. You staying open, you allow things to flow through you, and the universe is abundant, so you become abundant yourself. As I said, it expands you to a bigger you, and you basically help to create a better world and making yourself better along the way. So that's what I wish to everyone in 2019. And you're welcome to come up with more topics if you feel like having more working groups on whatever subject or exploring more with the Mind Mirror.
And I just want to add, Happy New Year, everybody.
Late
Happy
New Year
2019.
in February. Chinese year comes in February, so we are not quite late.
Well, it's the month of love, so that works too.
So many blessings to all.
Thank you. Thank you all for being
Thank
here
you,
and
everyone.
adding your wisdom. We'll see you next month.